On this vote, the yeas are 172, the nays are 251, and the motion is not agreed to. The question is on adoption of the resolution. As many as are in favor will signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Objection to the motion. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York rise?
I ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. Those in favor of request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. Sufficient number having arisen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will control their vote by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are... On this vote, the yeas are 255, the nays are 67, one member voting present. The resolution is agreed to. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The House will be in order. What are we doing now? Okay, we got that. Where's my...
House will be in order. House will be in order. House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 708, I call up House Resolution 706.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 706, resolution authorizing the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform to initiate or intervene in judicial proceedings to enforce certain subpoenas.
Pursuant to House Resolution 708, the resolution is considered read. The gentleman from California, Mr. Issa, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Cummings, each will control 10 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
The gentleman's correct. The gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Lundgren.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, we've just had a very important vote, and some would ask what this second vote is about. This second vote is a simple authorization for the committee involved to be able to essentially hire counsel that would allow us to go into court to seek a declaratory judgment by the federal court to enforce the subpoenas that have been presented by this committee to the Attorney General of the United States. It's a simple, straightforward resolution. Why is it important? One of our obligations under the Constitution is to provide oversight of the executive branch. There are those in this body who have been here and engaged in debate with respect to important items such as the Patriot Act and FISA. And one of the things we have attempted to assure our constituents was that we would ensure that the constitutional rights of Americans would not be trampled upon as we carry out the appropriate responsibility of protecting this country and our constituents against terrorist attack. That requires us to provide active oversight over the executive branch. Similarly, in this case, we have an obligation to stand in the shoes of those we represent, to oversee the operations of the executive branch, in this case the Department of Justice, to ensure that they are following the law. One manner in which that can be frustrated is by a department, in this case the Department of Justice, that refuses to respond to lawful subpoenas and give us the information so that we can do that oversight. That is what we were talking about. This Congress, this House of Representatives, was misled. I don't know whether it was intentional or not. I do know we were misled by a representation from the Justice Department in official response to an inquiry by the Congress of the United States. That was not corrected for 10 months. You can look at it a couple of ways. One is that there was an attempt to slow walk the Congress so that it could not carry out its constitutional responsibility. There is a lot of talk on this floor by both Democrats and Republicans as to how we have an obligation to oversee the executive branch. In fact, one of the genius points of our Founding Fathers' Constitution is that conflict between or among the three branches of government, that natural tension. But that natural tension cannot exist, and we cannot do that which we are called upon under the Constitution to do faithfully if we are denied information to oversee the operations of the Department of Justice. All we are doing...
I'd ask the gentleman to have an additional 30 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for 30
So
seconds.
all we are doing simply is asking the authorization so that this committee can have the representation of counsel to see that these subpoenas are carried out. Since we have been given every sense from the Justice Department that it would be folly, in a sense, to suggest that they would carry out the actions that we just voted upon against the Attorney General. This is the method by which we can achieve that which we are required to do, that is to carry out oversight responsibility against the Executive Department, including the Department of Justice.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Maryland.
I yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from the District of Columbia, Ms. Norton.
The gentlelady from the District of Columbia is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I have come back from walking out of this proceeding to address the serious, baseless charge of cover-up. No one in the majority has been able to charge that the Attorney General or his top lieutenants knew about the gun walking initiated in the Bush administration, because there is no evidence of that after 16 months of investigation. This contempt resolution stems from a letter from the department correcting the record, from a letter written in the legislative affairs part of the Justice Department that there was no gun walking. That letter relied on statements of ATF officials and Justice Department officials who this Justice Department then fired and did its own investigation. Then what you have is contempt for correcting the record. This is the opposite of a cover-up, but it is alleged. If the department has nothing to hide, it would simply turn over everything in its possession. The other side has gone so far as to say that when the president invoked executive privilege, he too was implicated in a cover-up. But the Supreme Court itself has said that while the privilege is not absolute, and here I am quoting, human experience teaches that those who expect public dissemination of their remarks may well temper candor with concern for appearances. Thus, presidents have repeatedly asserted executive privilege to protect confidential executive branch deliberative materials from congressional subpoena. The last leg of this weak read of contempt is, could I have another 30 seconds?
Grant the lady additional 30 seconds.
Lady's recognized.
It is that the president asserted executive privilege too late. Why not from the beginning? The president, like every president before him, did not assert the privilege until negotiations broke down, but the committee proceeded without even examining the basis for the privilege, as prior chairs have done. It is the most irresponsible allegation of this debate because no evidence for cover-up has been submitted. This subpoena is so partisan and political that I expect any court to do just what our committee should have done, to compel the parties to sit down to negotiate.
The gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's amazing that people would say there's no evidence of a cover-up when somebody says, no, we didn't do what we did, and then hides it for an additional 10 months. By any normal American standard, that would be a cover-up. With that, I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Fahrenholt, for 2 minutes.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today in support of the motion for for civil contempt, so we can get an attorney to proceed. Normally, under contempt, what happens is we vote like we just did to hold someone in contempt, and it's turned over to the Department of Justice, in fact, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, to pursue in district court. Unfortunately, the U.S. Attorney is an employee and reports to the Attorney General, who was just found in contempt. And we are concerned, I am concerned, that past history of stonewalling and delays that are associated with getting us information and cooperating with us on Fast and Furious will continue. And in fact, there will be no prompt prosecution of the contempt resolution we just voted out. So it is absolutely critical that the committee be given the authority to pursue this on their own if the Justice Department is not responsive. I therefore urge all of my colleagues to join me in support of this civil contempt resolution, and I'll yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland.
Yield to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Scott, 2 minutes.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman for yielding. The contempt citation pending against Attorney General Holder is unfounded, unfair, and unwise. All of this involves questions about gun walking, and we know that the Attorney General has handed over thousands of documents in response to multiple subpoenas. And so we know that the gun walking policy began under the Bush administration. We know that President Bush's Attorney General, Michael McCasey, was briefed on the policy, and it continued. We know that the Attorney General Holder, when he found out about it, he shut the program down and called for an investigation. If we want to know why the policy started, we should ask officials who served when it started during the Bush administration. If we want to know what Attorney General Holder knew about Fast and Furious, we should call former acting director of the ATF, Ken Melson, who is on record saying that he would have been the one to have informed the Attorney General, but even he didn't know about Fast and Furious. But unfortunately, requests from the Democratic members of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform to call these witnesses have been rejected. At this point, there's been no articulation of any useful information about the origins of gun walking in Fast and Furious or the death of Agent Brian Terry that can be learned from the narrow set of documents still at issue. Nor has there been any articulation of any legitimate legislative purpose that can be achieved. In fact, Chairman Issa has silenced whistleblowers who testified about legislation to strengthen law enforcement tools on the southwestern border. The Speaker now insists on holding Attorney General Holder in contempt for failing to respond to more subpoenas. The Speaker should articulate with clarity what legitimate purpose should be served by the response. If nothing legitimately useful is to be learned, nor any legislative purpose to be achieved with the continued response to these subpoenas, then it's time for the Attorney General to get back to work along with the members of the House. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if I heard the gentleman right when he said that I silenced whistleblowers in order to keep them from talking about gun control. If there's a gentleman disparaging and falsely claiming that I did something that I know for a fact I did not.
The gentleman yield?
Of course.
I'll tell you what you did. When you called the whistleblowers in, and the whistleblowers who were ATF agents, and you know this.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm answering your question.
Reclaiming my time.
The gentleman from California controls the time.
Reclaiming my time. It's pretty clear you're disparaging me, and you're disparaging me by making a claim that's untrue. The bottom line is, in committee, witnesses were told that they need not answer questions that were not the subject of the hearing. And in fact, those witnesses were allowed and did answer questions by the minority having to do with gun control, an issue they prefer to talk about rather than the cause of Brian Terry's death. And with that, I'd recognize the gentleman from Texas for 2 minutes.
Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, as a former federal prosecutor at the Department of Justice, I do not take these proceedings lightly. Above all, those at the department cherish their integrity. But, Mr. Speaker, that integrity has now been impugned. This is not about politics. It's about pursuit of the truth and justice. The definition of contempt is a willful disobedience to or open disrespect for the rules of orders of a court or legislative body. This definition falls squarely within the facts here. When insiders revealed the government's role in Operations Fast and Furious, the Department of Justice falsely told Congress that whistleblowers weren't telling the truth. And as Congress fulfilled its oversight obligations and tried to get to the bottom of how guns were illegally put in the hands of Mexican drug cartels, ultimately killing Border Patrol Agent Brian Terry, this administration refused to turn over crucial documents that would shed light on this. Instead, they asserted the executive privilege at the 11th hour, really calling into question the validity of the privilege itself, and at the same time demonstrating that communications were held at the highest levels in the government. In fact, the wiretaps we all know who have worked at the department are approved at Maine Justice. Mr. Speaker, this Attorney General needs to be held accountable. The Terry family, the families of the Mexican people who have been slain and killed, and the American people deserve no less. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland.
I yield to Mr. Reyes, 2 minutes.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed a sad day today, and as an officer that spent 26 and a half years wearing the United States Border Patrol uniform, it is regrettable for me today that we're here under these circumstances. I want to acknowledge and thank the chairman and the ranking member for inviting me to go with them to Mexico City and visit the U.S. Embassy about the circumstances around what led to the investigation of Fast and Furious. And to me, it's regrettable because we are here discussing the death of a Border Patrol agent. I went to the memorial service for Agent Brian Terry. I visited with his mom and his family that day. I went there because as a former Border Patrol agent, I wanted to express sympathy and support, as I did so many times as a chief, for agents that were killed in the line of duty. So for me, it is particularly troubling that we're here politicizing the death of a United States Border Patrol agent. We ought to be about getting to the circumstances of the investigation led under a U.S. attorney under OCDEF. Both the ranking member and the chairman know that that was the controlling entity in this case. I don't know except to say that it's pure basic politics that we've now spun this up to the level of the Attorney General. Having had the experience to supervise my agents that were part of OCDEF investigations, and having had a number of conversations with my friends on the other side of the aisle who were experienced prosecutors, everybody here that has that experience knows that those controls don't go up to the level of the Attorney General except after the case.
30 seconds.
Just for 30 seconds.
Thank you. Don't go up to the level of the Attorney General. So we're here taking a lot of time when we should be discussing things that are a priority to the American people. We're here under the worst of circumstances for the Terry family, who all they want is closure on the death of a son, on the death of a patriotic American citizen, and spinning it in a political sense. I really think that this is a sad day for this House of Representatives, and we ought to do better for the American people. And I yield back the balance.
Time of the gentleman's expired. The gentleman from California.
At this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Labrador.
Gentleman from Idaho is recognized for 1 minute.
I'm good. Mr. Speaker, once again I sit here and I'm amazed by the language that is being used. We've had numerous hearings, we've had numerous investigations, we've had a lot of people come before Congress and give us false information. And the reality is that I hear again and again from the other side is that there is no evidence of cover-up. There is no evidence of cover-up. But the reality is that we have only received 5% of the documents that we have requested. There is no way for us to know exactly what happened, who knew, when, and what did they know, unless we receive all of the documents. All we're asking the Attorney General to do is to provide the documents that we have requested. We wouldn't be standing here holding these contempt proceedings if he had given us the documents, and that's why I ask everybody in this body to actually vote for contempt. Thank you very much.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland.
May I inquire as to how much time is left?
Gentleman from Maryland has 3 minutes remaining, and the gentleman from California has 1 minute and 3/4 remaining.
Will reserve.
Gentleman from Maryland.
Reserving the right to close. I have no more speakers.
All right. Very well.
Does the gentleman from Maryland wish to be recognized?
Yes. Mr. Speaker, the You know, it's interesting here today what we just did with regard to the criminal contempt. I do believe that it is very unfortunate, and let me tell you why. We have an Attorney General who is indeed an honorable man. We who practice law look up to the Attorney General and any U.S. Attorney. They are folks like us who are well educated and who love their country. And Eric Holder Jr. is no exception. Over and over again, he has tried to cooperate with this committee. And I'm sure that both sides, his side and our side, have become a little frustrated at times. But as he said in a meeting a few weeks ago, about a couple weeks ago, he said that he's willing to give the documents, but he was asking that at some point his attorneys have an opportunity to get back to work. Now, Leader Pelosi said something a moment ago that we should not lose sight of, Mr. Speaker, when she spoke about the Constitution and that it requires Congress and the executive branch to avoid unnecessary conflict and to seek accommodations that serve both of their interests. In the words of Attorney General William French Smith when he said, and of course he was under President Reagan, it is our obligation, it is the obligation of each branch to make a principled effort to acknowledge and, if possible, to meet the legitimate needs of the other branch. I believe that this Attorney General has bent over backwards trying to accommodate us, trying to provide the information, but at the same time, as he has said to us many times, to protect the institution of the Attorney General of the United States. And when I say protect the institution, I mean protect the institution. Same types of things that have been subjects of assertions of executive privilege, making sure that wiretap applications are not made public, making sure that confidential informants are not disclosed, making sure that ongoing investigations are not interfered with. And I'm not sure, but maybe something that happened, we're not sure, we're checking on it, happened in this House already today, may have been interfered with a trial already. And so, as I close, I would submit that he has done the very best that he could, and now we need to meet him halfway.
Gentleman has expired. The gentleman from California.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute, 1 3/4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been a long day for America, but it's been a longer day for the Terry family. I'm going to urge everyone to vote for this ability to hire counsel, and that's what the last vote is, and I believe it will pass overwhelmingly. But I'm going to use this time to pledge to the American people, to pledge to the Terry family, and to pledge my colleagues. This investigation has in fact been brought to a halt in one area, and the area is the Attorney General's flat refusal to any longer cooperate with this committee. But it doesn't change the fact that as in the days and weeks to come, we will use what we can in the way of other tools, including some of the individuals that the minority has talked about today, to glean additional information, to find ways to prove accountability for the many people that had to be involved in this OSADEF operation in order for those guns to walk. We will continue to do that. We will try to find the truth. Hopefully, in the weeks to come, we also will begin getting cooperation from the administration again. But if we don't, I will tell the ranking member here today, it has always been my intention to look backwards to previous gun walking or programs that we believe were certainly poorly designed and resulted in weapons getting out of the hands of lawful people and into the hands of criminal elements. That's not going to change. It's not going to change because it's our obligation to investigate, and because this one we cannot let loose until the Terry family has been kept, a promise that the ranking member and I both made. So I take the ranking member at his word today that in fact he will not rest until we get them answers, and I commit the same that I will not, and I urge the passage of this resolution.
Gentleman's time has expired. All time for debate is expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 708, the previous question is ordered on the resolution. Those in favor of adopting the resolution say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The resolution is agreed to. And without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid.
Roll call.
The gentleman from Maryland.
Vote. Roll call.
Gentleman is
Yeas and nays.
Gentleman is requesting the yeas and nays. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having arisen, the nays and yeas are ordered. The yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 258, the nays are 95, with 5 voting present. The resolution is agreed to.